Welcome to Revenge Report. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more. Let's dive in. I woke up to the phone ringing, buzzing like a hornet on the nightstand. The screen lit up. Sharon, Mom's clinic. My heart punched my ribs. It was nearly midnight. I grabbed it fast, voice still gravel. Hello? Sharon didn't waste time. Dina, you need to get down here. He hurt her bad this time. I was already swinging my legs out of bed before she finished. Is she? She's alive, but she needs you now. I didn't ask for details. I just hung up and shoved my work overalls on over my tank top. The fabric stuck to my skin. I'd sweated through my sleep shirt. I pulled my hair into a messy ponytail, snatched my keys, and bolted out the door of my trailer. The gravel crunched under my boots as I jogged to my truck. Crickets screamed from the woods behind my lot, like they knew what was coming. The drive across county lines felt longer than usual. Headlights cut through the night like knives. My fingers squeezed the wheel, knuckles white. I'd done this drive plenty of times, to visit, to help, to drop off groceries when she didn't want him seeing delivery receipts. But this was different. Before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. When I pulled into the clinic lot, the building looked fake, like some overlit movie set with its buzzing fluorescent signs and glass doors. I slammed the truck door, walked fast. My boots echoed through the entry hall. Sharon met me at the double doors near the exam rooms, clipboard in hand, her face pale. She's in room 3, she said quietly. We had to sedate her. I nodded once. My mouth was dry. I could hear something down the hall, a voice, low but sharp. Then it got louder. You should be grateful I didn't go harder, my father's voice barked through the closed exam room door. My feet stopped moving. That voice, gravel, rage, full of control, hadn't changed in 30 years. My stomach flipped. My hand hovered over the knob, fingers shaking. I didn't breathe, but my training kicked in. Not the OSHA certification stuff, not the paperwork, the other training, the kind you get growing up walking on eggshells, the kind where you can size up a threat by the sound of boots on tile. I let my hand rest on the knob. I stepped in. Mom was curled on the cot, bruised and dazed, eyes glassy. My dad stood over her, fists still clenched. Step away from her, Dad, I said, calm as a loaded gun. Scene 2. The confrontation word count target, 850, plus or minus 5%, 808 to 893. Strict requirement, target, 881 words. He turned when he heard my voice, and for a second, he just stared like he didn't recognize me. His hand was still halfway in the air, not in a fist, not quite. Just enough to tell me this wasn't over for him yet. Dina, he said, blinking like he'd seen a ghost. What the hell are you doing here? I didn't answer that. He looked me up and down. My work overalls, my steel-toe boots, the ID tag still clipped to my chest pocket. You step back, and you step back now, I said. He snorted. You think you're somebody now, huh? Come in here dressed like a man, barking orders. This is family business. You don't get to interfere. My fingers tightened around my phone in my pocket. My breathing slowed. I kept my eyes locked on his. Family business. I thought of the old shop, that damn place with its concrete floors and cinder block walls. Him slamming wrenches down when a bolt stripped, shouting across the bay, throwing spark plug wires when a job took too long, the way Mom would make jokes to calm the customers, the way she'd hide bruises behind bangs and long sleeves like it was part of the uniform. Not anymore, I said, pulling the phone out. He laughed, dry and bitter. What are you gonna do, call the sheriff? You think you're some kind of cop now? No, I said, tapping the screen. But I'm a certified safety inspector. I work injury claims, workplace violence, assault reports. I know exactly what this is. You're full of shit. I took a step forward. You just said you could have gone harder. You said that? In a medical facility, in front of witnesses. He glanced toward Sharon in the hallway, who was already dialing her own phone. You got no right, he snapped. You don't get to come in here and turn this into a circus. You're not in your garage anymore, Dad. You don't get to bark orders and expect everyone to duck. You ungrateful little... I raised my voice. This is a citizen's arrest under state code. You're being detained for domestic assault and elder abuse. You serious? I kept my tone flat. Step away from her. Now. He looked at Mom like she'd betrayed him. She still hadn't spoken. She just lay there, one arm over her stomach, the other limp at her side, face blotched with swelling and dried tears. He turned back to me, took a step. I didn't move. He took another. You gonna stop me, Dina? You think you've got what it takes? He was close enough now that I could smell the beer and oil still clinging to him, like he'd rolled straight off a creeper and into the ER. I said, "Don't come any closer," I repeated. He grinned, not amused, more like disgusted. Look at you, pretending to be tough. You were just a scared little girl hiding under the desk. You think I don't remember? I didn't blink. I remember everything. His jaw clenched. Dina, I'm warning you. No, I cut in. I'm done with warnings. You laid your hands on her again. That's assault. That's jail time. And you're not walking out of here. He stepped back, fists twitching. You'll regret this, he growled. I took one slow breath. I already regret not doing it sooner. The clinic security guard pushed through the door behind me, hand resting on his belt. Sir, you need to stay exactly where you are. My dad's face twisted into something I hadn't seen before. Not anger, not arrogance, just something tired, something cornered. He didn't speak again, just turned, raised his hands halfway in the air and let the guard cuff him. Sharon stepped in to help steady Mom as the paramedics moved her to a proper gurney. I stayed still until they wheeled her out, eyes fluttering, lips mumbling something I couldn't hear. As the door swung shut behind them, my dad looked over his shoulder at me. No apology, no explanation, just pure hate. I watched him go, chest rising and falling fast, blood thudding in my ears, and then I followed them out. As I walked out of that clinic, the smell of oil hit me from a passing truck. And just like that, I was 9 years old again, standing behind the counter of Hayes Auto Repair, watching my dad scream at a customer over a coupon. The shop was his kingdom, and he ruled it like a damn warlord. Grease-covered hands, voice that shook the ceiling panels, boots that stomped louder than thunder when he was pissed. And he was always pissed, about parts coming late, about customers asking questions, about Mom talking too long to someone who wasn't him. He had 3 rules. Don't be lazy, don't talk back, don't embarrass him. My mom, Linda, sat behind the front desk with a smile locked onto her face like it was welded there. She kept this row of thrift store figurines lined up next to the register. Plastic angels, a couple ceramic bunnies, one chipped ballerina. She called them her Peace Patrol. Just little reminders, she'd say, straightening them after he slammed another wrench on the counter, that we can make things calm. Calm to her meant survival. I still remember the day he accused her of cheating. I was sitting cross-legged behind the shop fridge, pretending to read a brochure about timing belts, while she chatted with a man about his Honda. He was polite, maybe smiled too much. When the guy left, Dad stormed in from the bay, red in the face. You like his smile, huh? That what gets you going? He snapped. Mom froze, didn't say a word. He grabbed her wrist and yanked her toward the office. I didn't move, didn't breathe. That night, after he cooled off and passed out in his recliner with a beer can on his chest, she came into my room. I didn't look at her. I was still pretending I hadn't heard a thing. But she knelt beside my bed and said, Sweetie, you gotta learn this early. It's better to bend than break. I asked her what that meant. She pulled the blanket up under my chin. It means you keep your head down, stay small, be still when things get loud. From then on, I did exactly that. I became good at vanishing. I timed my footsteps to the TV so he wouldn't hear me walking. I learned how to close drawers without sound. I knew when to disappear behind the tool chest if voices got sharp. There were good days, sure. Barbecues in the backyard, a radio playing oldies while Mom made peach cobbler. Sometimes Dad danced with her in the kitchen, dipping her like they were high school sweethearts. She always laughed loud on those days, like it erased the bruises. But I knew better. The good days were just bait. I didn't know what freedom looked like until I started vocational school. Sophomore year, I signed up for an intro to auto safety course. I fell in love fast. There were torque specs, diagrams, rules that didn't change just because someone had a bad day. I had a knack for it. Took night classes, learned how to write up violations, how to flag dangers before they turned into lawsuits or injuries. My instructors saw it too. I wasn't just some grease monkey's daughter. I was damn good at what I did. By senior year, I had my certification in reach. I got a part-time job at a tire place across town and started saving. The week I turned 18, I packed a bag. I told Mom I had a plan, a place to stay with a girl from class. She didn't ask questions. She just nodded like she'd always known this day would come. I left a spare phone in her sock drawer, one of those prepaid ones, told her to keep it hidden, just in case. Just in case what? She asked. I didn't answer. She didn't press. When I walked out of that house, I didn't cry. I didn't even look back. I told myself I'd escaped. But escape's not a clean break. Not when you leave someone behind. I thought leaving would be enough. That putting miles between me and the shop would mean something. But my job kept dragging me back into versions of it. Auto shops, tire yards, lift garages tucked behind gas stations. I'd walk in with my clipboard, boots caked in dust, and some guy would be yelling about a busted radiator or a delivery late by 20 minutes. Tools flying, lockers dented, phones slammed down hard enough to crack. It always felt the same, air thick with sweat, anger riding on every word. And no one did a damn thing about it. Not the techs, not the front desk girls. They were all used to it the way I had been. One place smelled exactly like my dad's. Brake fluid and burnt coffee. The boss there had a habit of throwing used gloves at employees when they missed steps on inspections. Said it kept them on their toes. He smirked when I cited him for unsafe practices and told me I should smile more, Inspector. I filed the report, wrote it clean, and made sure the fine stuck. The day everything really clicked was when I visited a tow yard out by Stockton. I was there to follow up on a report about faulty equipment. Nothing unusual. The guy who ran it, mid-50s, big voice, heavy boots, barked every sentence like it was a warning. The teenage girl behind the front counter didn't say a word until I asked her directly about the winch records. She hesitated, eyes flicking toward the office door. Then she handed me a folded note instead of speaking. Inside was a list of dates, injuries, and one sentence. He says he'll fire me if I tell. I called her outside to check inventory numbers. When we got to the yard, she grabbed my sleeve. Her hand was ice cold. "Do they always get away with it?" she whispered. I looked her straight in the face. "Not if I have anything to do with it." I helped her file a formal complaint, followed up with the labor board, walked her through the process, start to finish. And when I left that place, I didn't feel tired. I felt clear. This job wasn't just paperwork, it was justice, with a clipboard and steel toes. Back home that week, I stopped by to pick up a box of old manuals I'd stored in the garage. My dad was on the porch, same beer-stained chair, same look like the world owed him. He saw the badge on my chest and chuckled. "Safety, Inspector," he said, dragging the words out like gum off a boot. "You think you're better than the rest of us now?" I didn't answer. He leaned back, grin wide. "All that time around engines and men, and you come back with a clipboard and a mouthful of rules." Still, I didn't speak. He shook his head. "You ain't changed, Dina. Just dressed it up." I picked up my box, walked past him like he wasn't even there. That silence, that was power. The same kind my mom used when he raged and she just turned away. Silence, when you choose it, isn't weakness. It's armor. He could mock all he wanted. It didn't change the fact that I had authority now, real authority. I knew how to spot abuse. Didn't matter if it was behind a cash register or in a garage bay. I knew what it looked like, what it sounded like, and most of all, I knew how to put it in writing and make it stick. He wasn't proud of me. I didn't expect him to be, but I wasn't scared of him anymore either. The clinic lights haunted me for days. That pale green glow behind Mom's bruises, the echo of his voice, the way he looked right at me like I'd betrayed him. It played on repeat. In the truck, in the shower. When I closed my eyes, I saw her lying there, curled into herself like something already broken. I met with the sheriff's deputy 2 mornings later, right outside the intake station. He wore mirrored sunglasses and kept glancing at his notepad like he didn't want to look me in the eye. "You're the one who made the call?" he asked. "I'm the one who placed him under citizen's arrest," I corrected. He nodded, scratching something down. "Want to walk me through it?" So I did. Start to finish. No shaking in my voice. No hesitation. Every word I gave was a nail in the box they were building around him. "Has he ever done this before?" the deputy asked. I gave a short laugh. "He's never not done it. This was just the first time someone put it on paper." They booked him the next day. Assault. Elder abuse. The clinic filed its own incident report. Sharon backed it. Security backed it. Even the EMT gave a written statement about his aggression. Mom stayed under supervision in the recovery wing for women escaping domestic situations. I visited twice a day, once before work, once after. She didn't talk much. Just sat with her blanket up to her chin and stared at the little plastic flower someone had taped to the window. People started talking, of course. You can't lock up a man like Harold Hayes without rattling the whole damn town. At the gas station, two guys muttered something behind me about family turning on their own. At the post office, Mrs. Carmichael from 3 blocks down squeezed my arm and whispered, "Finally, someone had the guts." The community was split right down the middle. Some still called him Sir. Others spit after saying his name. I didn't care either way. I started making lists, concrete steps, tasks I could handle, rent listings, counseling referrals, safety locks for the new place. My brain worked better when it had jobs to do. I brought it all to her one afternoon, sat down next to her cot, and laid the stack of papers on her lap. "We've got a couple units open on the south end of town," I said. "Close to the market, no stairs. I can help with the deposit." She barely looked up. "Therapist I know said she'd see you on a sliding scale. No pressure." Her voice was thin. "You're doing too much." "I'm doing exactly what needs to be done." She touched one of the pages. "He's still your father." I sat back in the chair. Let the silence hang there a second. "That's not a reason to let him keep hurting you." Her fingers curled around the blanket edge. "You don't understand," she whispered. "He's always been like this." But I kept thinking, maybe if I was quieter, softer. "Mom," I cut her off, not angry, just firm. "You've been bending so long, you forgot you're allowed to stand up." She didn't answer. I got up, kissed her on the forehead, and told her I'd be back after shift. Later that week, I was called in to sign the official report, the one that would move things toward charges. It was waiting for me on a clipboard at the station. I read every line. Victim, Linda Hayes. Accused, Harold Hayes. Witness, Dina Hayes. I picked up the pen. For the first time in my life, my hands didn't shake. I signed it, and when I handed it back, I didn't feel guilt, or fear, or even relief. Just clarity. I'd drawn a line, one that should have been drawn years ago, one that said, "You don't get to hurt people and call it love." A week later, she asked me to take her to see him. I froze mid-sip of my coffee. "You want to what?" She didn't raise her voice. "I need to talk to him." "He's in holding. You're not obligated to do a damn thing." Her hands were folded neatly in her lap. "I know. I still need to go." I didn't get it, but I drove her anyway. Quiet ride, windshield wipers squeaking every third pass. She didn't say much, just clutched her purse like it held more than tissues and gum. Inside the visitor room, I stayed near the back wall, arms crossed, jaw tight. She sat at the metal table, knees together, eyes fixed on the opposite door like she was bracing for impact. When they brought him in, I almost didn't recognize him. Orange jumpsuit wrinkled, hair greasy, face hollow. He looked smaller somehow, like someone had let the air out of him. But then his eyes found Mom, and the sneer came back. "You came to watch me rot?" he growled, voice low and scratchy. She didn't flinch. "I came to forgive you." The words hit me harder than anything he'd ever thrown. I actually stepped forward without meaning to, then stopped. He blinked like she'd slapped him. "Forgive?" he repeated, laughing once, dry and bitter. "After what you've done." Mom shook her head slowly. "You put yourself here. I'm just done protecting you from consequences." He leaned in, voice colder now. "You think this makes you look strong? You think you're better than me now?" "No," she said. "I think I'm finally honest." He looked at her like he wanted to crush the table between them. "You wouldn't even have a life if it wasn't for me. You're nothing without." She reached out and laid her hand over his. He stopped mid-sentence. "Forgiveness isn't about you," she said softly. "It's so I can stop carrying this weight." He jerked his hand back like she'd burned him, sat there, staring at her like she'd spoken in another language. She stood up. "That's all I came to say." I opened the door for her, still trying to wrap my head around it, still tasting that word, forgiveness. On the way back to the car, I finally asked, "How can you do that?" She didn't answer right away, just walked slow, breathing deep like she hadn't taken a full breath in years. "I'm not saying he deserves it," she finally said. "I'm saying I do." I didn't respond, because I didn't understand it, not even a little. I couldn't stop replaying that visit. Her hand on his, the word forgive like it wasn't dipped in acid. I didn't trust it. Not for a second. Forgiveness was how you got dragged back in, how you let the door crack open just wide enough for him to get his foot in again. But Mom seemed lighter after that day. Not happy, not glowing, just less weighed down. Like she'd finally dropped the backpack she'd carried her whole damn life. She moved into a one-bedroom rental across town. Old brick, noisy pipes, crooked mailbox. She started working part-time at a craft supply store. Said it kept her hands busy, kept her mind focused on things that didn't scream or slam doors. I helped her set up the place, changed the locks, installed a deadbolt. We hung wind chimes on the porch, her idea. I figured it was the opposite of his voice. One quiet evening, just before sunset, we sat on her porch sipping sweet tea. It was finally cooling off after one of those heavy heat days where the air feels like wet denim. She glanced over at me and said, like she was commenting on the weather, "He wrote me a letter." My stomach knotted up. I didn't move. What did it say? She took her time answering. That he's sorry, that he's seeing a counselor, that he finally understands what he did. I stared at the trees across the road. That doesn't mean he's changed. I know, she said, her voice calm, but I've changed. I know better now. I won't go back. I looked at her then. Really looked. Same eyes, same hands. But she was sitting up straighter, breathing deeper, like the fear wasn't living in her bones anymore. You sure? She nodded once. He can say whatever he wants. It doesn't change what I've seen, or what I've survived. I wanted to believe her. Part of me did. But the other part, the part that remembered hiding behind the dryer with my knees to my chest, that part didn't believe anyone changed just because they said so. Still, she hadn't folded the letter into a heart or stuck it on the fridge. She'd tucked it in a drawer, like something to keep, but not revisit. She wasn't holding it like a promise. She was holding it like proof. I don't get how you can forgive him, I muttered. She leaned back in her chair, eyes on the sky turning orange. It's not about letting him off the hook, she said. It's about not letting him live in my head anymore. I sat with that, let it hang there between us. It still didn't make sense to me, but I could see it worked for her. The weight she carried all those years. It wasn't gone, but it wasn't dragging her anymore. Maybe forgiveness wasn't about the other person at all. Maybe it was just a release valve for the one who survived. A week later, we sat side by side on a stiff wooden bench in courtroom 3. Small room, local judge, old fluorescent lights that buzzed just loud enough to drive you crazy if you sat still too long. Mom wore her best sweater, soft blue, the one she'd saved from a church rummage sale years ago. I'd ironed it for her that morning. Didn't say anything when I handed it over, just nodded. The room smelled like dust and paperwork. A few people from town filled the back row, mostly older folks who couldn't resist courthouse drama. One guy from Dad's bowling league, Sharon from the clinic, a woman who used to clean at the shop but quit after one too many slammed doors. The bailiff called the room to order, and we stood when the judge entered. Everything went fast after that. The charges were read: aggravated assault, emotional abuse, repeat offenses, domestic violence against a vulnerable party. Harold stood at the defendant's table in a wrinkled button-up and county-issued slacks. No tie, hands cuffed in front. His face was blank. Not smug, not sorry. Just hollow. The judge asked for his plea. He said, guilty. No hesitation, just one word. Flat. I sat straighter. Then came the part I didn't expect. He cleared his throat, looked up, not at us, not at anyone in particular. I was wrong, he said. Quiet, barely more than a whisper. No excuses, no if you hadn't, no blaming her, no blaming me. Just 3 words that hung in the stale courtroom air like a crack in the wall finally showing through paint. It was the first time in my life I'd ever heard him say that. Not when he scared us half to death slamming the fridge door off its hinges. Not when he smashed her phone because she didn't answer fast enough. Not even when I was 12 and he left me waiting outside the shop in the cold for 2 hours because he forgot. Just now. In front of a judge, in front of a courtroom, in front of the people who mattered least, and us. The judge didn't react, just noted it and moved on. Sentencing was confirmed. 18 months. Mandatory counseling. No contact. As the bailiff led him toward the exit door, he looked back. Not at the crowd. Not at the ceiling. At me. There was no fire in his eyes this time. No smug grin. No hate. Just regret. Raw and ugly. He didn't say a word. I didn't wave. Didn't smile. I just watched him go. And something in me, something tight and buried, let go with him. Outside, the wind had picked up. Leaves skipped across the courthouse steps in sharp bursts. It smelled like cold earth and dried pine needles, like fall had finally won the fight against summer. We stood there a minute, not talking. Then Mom pulled in a long breath through her nose and let it out like she'd been holding it for years. "It's over," she said. I didn't say anything, but this time, I believed her. About a month later, I stopped by her new place after work. The second I stepped through the door, the smell hit me. Lavender oil and warm bread. Clean, calm, safe. She was in the living room, humming some tune I didn't recognize, rearranging a stack of paperbacks on the shelf like it actually mattered where they went. She didn't hear me at first. She looked peaceful. That's the only word for it. Not hiding, not bracing, just being. "Smells good in here," I said, setting my keys on the counter. She turned, smiling. "I tried that bread machine you gave me, the cinnamon one." I nodded and took a seat at the small table near the window. The place was simple, one bedroom, no wasted space. But every part of it felt hers. A wreath on the door, soft curtains, a magnet on the fridge that read, "Choose peace anyway." She brought over 2 plates, bread, some lentil soup, and sat across from me. I took my badge off and set it on the table beside my bowl. It caught the light, official seal and all. She reached out and touched it gently with 2 fingers. "You saved me." I shook my head. "No, Mom, you saved yourself. I just showed up in time." She didn't argue, just smiled again, smaller this time. Sadder maybe, but solid. We ate in silence for a few minutes, the kind of silence that didn't press down, the kind that just sat there and breathed beside you. I let it settle. Then my eyes drifted to the window, to the breeze catching the edge of her curtains. And I thought about that girl, the one I used to be, hiding behind the garage, counting seconds between shouts, praying to disappear. She was still in there, still part of me. But she didn't stay small. She didn't vanish. She grew into someone who could knock on a clinic door in the middle of the night and say, "Step away from her, Dad." She became someone who knew what to do when things broke. Someone who could draw lines and make them stick. Forgiveness and justice aren't the same. But when they meet, when they both show up in the same room, something powerful happens. Something heavy lifts. The past didn't disappear. But for the first time in my life, it didn't own me.